the kids do a great job thinking when we present questions or activities using these icons. We're not going to go in depth with these today because this really isn't what the presentation is focusing on, but I do have some resources as we go on if that is of interest to you, or if you've heard about them but you want to dig it a little bit deeper. There are some resources that you can explore on your own. So you can go ahead and change. And depth and complexity icons require the kids to think at a higher level in its most simplest form. Similar to depth of knowledge, similar to the Bloom's taxonomy we're familiar with, but I definitely like the visual icons that come with depth and complexity. So the first thing we did when we started chasing Vermeer is as we went through the novel, we introduced the icons. We introduced a couple at a time each week. And when we introduced the icons, one of the things that we found to be most helpful to help the kids kind of take ownership of them was to connect the icon to the child using a hook activity. So in the bottom right-hand corner of that slide, you can see the Gifted Guild's Guide to Depth and Complexity. That book is written by Ian Bird, and then I can't remember the woman's name, but it's co-authored. That book is definitely an awesome resource that gives a lot of ideas of how to introduce the different icons. A couple activities or ideas, whether or not you choose to use icons in your room. When I would introduce them with the unanswered questions, one of the ideas in that book was to show a short video clip of just leave it. Of the Mary Celeste, which was a shipwreck that has a lot of mystery behind it. So the kids really got interested. Okay, stop. I am at a meeting. Thank you. Apologies, my 3-year-old daughter. When we would introduce, so that kind of got the kids thinking going, and they would ask lots of questions, and then that led to further research. Some of the kids were really interested in it. When we would introduce change over time, we displayed the McDonald's logo from when it first started all the way through up till now. And so the kids got to give their input as to why they think the icon changed, or the symbol or logo changed, which one was their favorite. So just little things like that to connect the icon to something relevant for the kids, we found to be really effective. But the one that I wanted to highlight today, again, this can be used with any novel. It could be used really in any content area. And it's also a great activity to do at the beginning of the year when you're getting to know your students, is an activity called What's Your Sentence? And so this we used when we introduced the big idea, or like the main idea central message. For younger grades, you could use it, fables, to introduce big idea. This example of What's Your Sentence is actually a short video from a high school class. So it can definitely be used all the way on up through the high school level students. So basically what this is the kids have to create a poster that sums up what they would like to be known for in the future, how they want others to view them. So Diane, are you able to click that link and show that video?
Take 1 second.
What's my sentence? She helped me realize that every day is another chance to make a new ending.
She cared, loved, inspired. Overcame and changed the world.
Showed the world that the only opinion that matters is yours. Hey Mom, you changed the world one smile at a time.
She told her story and people stopped judging mentally challenged.
She cared for everyone, even when everyone didn't care for her.
He gave second chances.
She changed the world by showing people that there is more to life than just you.
She changed my view of the world. She helped encourage others to do great.
He set goals and achieved them.
He was the first in his family to graduate from college.
She spread the love of Jesus Christ.
He showed Jesus in everything he did.
She changed the world by caring. She made an impact on a stranger's life. She became.
His motivation and will was greater than Wood's.
He did the hokey pokey.
That's what it's all about.
So we really liked that idea, and because we were using it at the beginning of the school year, we thought that was a really neat way to get to know our own students. So the next couple slides, we'll come back to this slide, but the next couple slides are examples of our own 5th grade kiddos at the beginning of the year and what their one sentence was. And this really helped them connect and understand big ideas. So one of our students said he was known to try the impossible. That happens to be my son right there on the right-hand side. His one sentence was he was helpful, he was kind, he was faithful. And then there should be one other slide, Diane. Another student, her one sentence was she made everyone feel included. And then the last example was she was known to be happy, loving of animals, caring, and a good friend. All of these things, but the best is she walked with Christ. So that's the level of thinking you can get out of upper elementary kids using these depth and complexity icons. So that was a really neat activity. It helped build our classroom relationships and our classroom community while also hitting some academic thinking at the same time. Diane, if you can go back to two slides. And then the bottom picture was a multiple perspectives example, again, trying to connect to the kids and also include some humor for them. That is how different people from different, I guess, heights, more literal meaning, view the elephant. So you can see someone thinks it's a wall, it's a rope, is the tail, it's a spear, is the trunk, and so on. So that was a visual that we used to help introduce multiple perspectives. So as we introduced them, that would be the first day of the week on Monday. Then we would introduce them to, we had weekly icon bookmarks. The picture is one that came from Teachers Pay Teachers. However, we kind of used that, but then tweaked it to make it fit our novel. And also we used the bookmarks and were able to tier some of the questions, again, because we did have a little more variety of levels in our class than we typically do. So the bookmarks definitely helped guide the kids as we read. They had to be marking down. They had a focus of the icon or icons, 2 of them that we were focusing on. They had the prompt, and then they had to find evidence that would support and help answer the question that directly tied to one of the depth and complexity icons. So they did that throughout the week, and then at the end of the week, we would have depth and complexity book club discussions where they got together and they discussed their thoughts related to the different icons. So that's a way that the icons were used throughout the week. On the right-hand side, if you are interested in learning a bit more about these, Ian Bird's website is awesome. The book is below, like I have right there. And then there's a link to introducing the icons on his site. We won't go there now, but it's a great introduction page on getting familiar with the icons and also how to introduce the icons. So it gives some other ideas. All right, Diane, you can go ahead and skip, I think, keep going right there. All right, so then this comes to the meat and potatoes of it. At the very end of our book, after we did a lot of different activities throughout and discussion, the teacher and I were trying to figure out how to introduce across disciplines. That was our inspiration for this because we couldn't figure out a nice way to do it through the book beyond just the patterns and the art history and stuff. So we started coming up with ideas about a Vermeer research type project. But basically it focuses on the mystery behind the painter and what would the kids discover, Would there be truth in speculations around his painting? So this project really helped the kids focus on all the ins and outs of Johannes Vermeer's life. You can go ahead and switch. So at first we're struggling to find resources, web resources that would be valuable for the kids to use. And then we stumbled upon this gold mine. And this website, what we're going to show, is specific to Vermeer. However, this is a general arts and culture site through Google. So you could find pretty much, I think, any artist. There's lots of different avenues on this site. So Diane, if you would like to just click that link so we could at least see how the website is laid out before we look at the 3 different parts. And so if you just want to scroll down, Diane, this is the main website, and then each of those pictures the kids could click on, and it links to different articles. It links to all this information about the paintings, himself, the mysteries, just a lot of different aspects of it, hidden meanings and symbolism, things like that. There's videos embedded, there's little tutorials with painting for the kids. So again, this is a really cool site. Even if you don't use it with this book, you could explore it for something completely different. So this actually was the main website because it had everything we were looking for. This was the main website that we directed the kids to. And then there is, as she's scrolling down, there's visit the museums. You can actually tour 3D experience of the museums, which is pretty neat. So again, a lot of our kids have never been to an art museum at Sandy Valley. So this is a pretty neat experience that they were able to have. I think that should be pretty good. Diane, if you want to go ahead and click back to the screen. So we designed this project to have 3 different parts. It's still focused on different depth and complexity elements. It was a small group project, but we did do individual breakouts. So palette 1 was where they explored A Lady Writing, which is the painting that's in the book, and they all had to complete this part. They either could represent their learning through a summary frame, which is the top organizer up there, and that hit the big ideas and details icons of depth and complexity, or they could do an important poem. Again, just more of a poetic way to do / written way to do big idea and details. There is a link, we won't go there right now, but the important poem is linked to the actual picture book that's called the important book, and it's a pretty neat way to introduce it. So we use that to introduce that option for the students. So they completed one of those 2 choices. And then the second part of the palette 1 was they all were really interested in like the stolen paintings that occurred of the Vermeers. So on that website, there's an actual link, a sublink there that they could research and explore the mystery behind the stolen paintings. So then they picked 2 different paintings that were stolen of his, and they completed a double bubble to compare and contrast their findings. And it was pretty fascinating. The kids really enjoyed learning about the stories behind the stolen paintings. So everybody did that first part. Then palette 2 was where we jigsawed it out, and they were in small groups of 3. The first choice was a Vermeer rediscovered. So basically learning about his life. Again, they would go to certain links on that page. The second one was hidden in plain sight, where they would research and learn about how Vermeer just kind of embedded hidden symbolism in his paintings. That was pretty neat. Again, several different sublinks in that main web page. And then the third one was the artist studio. Kids learned the ins and outs of how he painted, his art techniques and things like that. So the kids figured out who was going to be an expert of which section, and then they did their own research, and then they came back, and before they put their whole group project together, they were able to choose. We put together a project menu. I've given you the 3 bullet points. These were the 3 projects that the kids chose. No one chose any of the other 6, but the kids really enjoyed. Some of them used Canva, which if you're not familiar with that, that's an online infographic design place. It's free. You can also do like postcards. The options are endless, but we used it more as an infographic. So some of them chose to do a slideshow, and then others chose to create an interactive bulletin board based on what they learned. So that was the second part of the project, and there's a couple sample pages as we go, but you can go ahead and go forward one. The last part of the project was our favorite. The kids absolutely loved this, and this is where everyone participated again in the same activity. And this is what we called the artist masterpiece. So we had a classroom exhibit. We set up our own art gallery in our classroom. And basically the kids had to take everything they've learned about art from throughout the whole entire book through the project research, and they had to create an original piece of art. And we talked about how art doesn't necessarily have to be, painting or crayons. It can be poetry, it can be music, it can be pottery, pretty much anything. So there's a couple slides here. We did have one girl, she chose to represent her art masterpiece through the form of a musical instrument. The girl on the left, she actually applied her learning from last year when we did a huge poetry study, and she wrote a poem, and then she painted her own pottery and then had hidden symbolism in it. That was also what we encouraged the kids to do, like Vermeer, try to embed some hidden meanings. The girl on the right, she chose to do digital art, and those symbolisms represented her grandma who recently passed and her great grandma and things like that. So that was her art. And if you want to go ahead and advance the slide one more time. On the left is snowboarding and hidden symbolism within the picture, a lot of like hidden letters that stand for things. There's a cross or 3 crosses on the snowboard, specific colors that stood for different things. The helmet there symbolized he's suffered from some concussion, so that connected with that. The boy in the middle is one who we often have trouble motivating at times. He's an awesome kid, great mind, and that's what he chose. He did that completely on his own at home. So the motivation was definitely high. He's fascinated with Paris, so he created a scaled model of the Eiffel Tower. And then the girl on the right was pretty cool. That page there in front, I know you can't see everything, but she had so much hidden symbolism related to Vermeer's life embedded in her canvas there. It was really, really neat. So that we chose to showcase hers as well. So that was just a variety of the classroom exhibits that the kids created in part 3 of that project. And Diane, if you want to go ahead and advance the slide. These are a couple sample project pages. If this is a project you're interested in doing, I would be glad, if you want to email me, I would be glad to share what I have with you. I hesitated on posting the entire thing. There are some changes that we wanted to make to it to make it maybe run a bit smoother, specific direct links and things like that. But pretty much they had an outline of their project. The next couple pages were more of a breakdown as to what was expected. And then on the right-hand side was their project menu that they could choose from for their expert presentation. Yep. So that was pretty much in a nutshell how we ran our first novel study of the year. The kids really liked it. They had a good handle on depth and complexity by the time things were over. And they learned a lot, and I think it ignited some art passion in some of the kids who might not have otherwise explored art on their own. So I do have one, I guess, Diane, should we pause for a second?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I see somebody with a hand up.
Okay, I can't see everybody on my screen, so if you want to kind of manage that.
I can't tell who it is. Is it Denise? Nobody's answering, so anybody have questions before we move on? Okay, Kristin, go ahead.
All right. The other thing that I talked to Diane about regarding presenting tonight was something more generic. So if Chasing Vermeer isn't appropriate for your age student, your students, or if that's a book that you just don't think you'd be quite interested in, we wanted to try to give something that maybe could benefit everyone, regardless of what books you use, what subjects you teach, and things like that. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with one-pagers. I just recently learned about them, I think last year. And so we tried it out this year. We tried it out, I think I did a little bit last year, but nothing to the extent this year. So this is another example. The kids actually just had their one-pager expo this past Tuesday. This is our 5th grade class again. And while we didn't focus on depth and complexity per se this time in the specific elements, we tried to dig deep with different concepts throughout the book. So our second book this year that we focused on was Hatchet. And Diane, if you want to go ahead and flip the slide one time. And we try to keep it new for the kids. So we try to do different things with each book. The first 2 books of the year, and this is during their, I guess, enrichment portion of the class, besides our curriculum, we did one book. Everybody kind of did the whole book, but we tried to differentiate some of the things. As we keep going through the rest of the year, we are going to incorporate multiple book choices and try to run true book clubs. But for Hatchet, key takeaways for general one-pagers, it's great. It gives the teacher a lot of freedom to select any skill and make it their own. It's very easy to tier and provide choice for kids, and it can be used with any content area, any book, and any topic. So those are 3 big general things about one-pagers. So these are all in the live binder. These are general one-pager resources that you may find usable for you. The one on the left is a one-pager choice board. This is more for a fiction book, but there are 12 different activities that the kids would do as they read their novel. They would be on the lookout for different things. The next slide, don't go there just yet, Diane, but the next slide will show you how we laid it out for Hatchet. We were afraid that giving them 12 things to be on the lookout for would be a bit overwhelming and we wouldn't get a lot of quality. So we actually limited that, but we still were able to give them some choice. So that's just something to keep in mind. The middle picture are cheat sheets, and they align with the one-pager menu on the left. So we gave the kids the cheat sheet in the middle. It's a little packet. So, and it explained and elaborated on each of the one-pager requirements a bit more. And then on the right-hand side were some notes section, or an open note space where they could take notes. They did a lot of text tagging as they read, so that it didn't all come to the end of the book and they had all this work to do. So they kind of worked as we went. And then the picture on the right is for at the very end when they're ready to create their one-pager. Some kids, they just want to be as creative as they're super creative to begin with. So they have an idea of how they want to design their one-pager, whereas other kids struggle with that. And so we provided templates for them to use. Now, what we were requiring surpassed just an 8.5 by 11. So they got to choose a template and then they recreated on a larger piece of paper. But these templates are in the live binder. So if you kind of like that idea, you can definitely pull those templates. All right, Diane, go ahead and switch the page. So this was our Hatchet one-pager. So what we did is we chose 6 big things like 6 big skills that we wanted to focus on. We actually ended up, again, we didn't want them to be overwhelmed. So we told them they had to all pick the top left box, which was the get started. So in their one-pager, they had to obviously include the title, the author, and their name. But then from the other 5, they got to pick 3 others. So instead of the necessary 6, we reworded it as the necessary 4. Figurative language, significant words and phrases, central message, setting, quotes, change in character. Those were some of the key skills that we were focusing on. So they picked 3 of those big skills to focus on in addition to their get started section. At the bottom then, we wanted to give them, again, choice. So we provided 6 different options and they got to pick 2. So some of them were writing a quick persuasive book review, connecting to the text, doing a form of poetry related to the main character, creating blackout poetry or some other type of imaginative way to represent the plot or a takeaway the kids had from reading, an artistic element, and then their own free choice element. So again, that's an example of how we picked specific skills we wanted, and then we also allowed that creativity and choice in there as well. And then the next couple slides show examples of some of the one-pagers that our 5th graders just completed. So the one on the left and the right, you can see they look very different. They have different choices, I guess, or elements in them. But we definitely were working on direct quoting from the text to support whatever we said. We were looking on kind of going deep with our thinking, so as a continuation from depth and complexity, but also trying to bring in that creativity piece. And so 2 very different representations of a one-pager, but both were pretty neat. And the girl on the left was one who does not like to take risks and does not like to, I guess, create on her own. So she did use a template, but it was pretty cool. I mean, that's pretty creative what she came up with. And then the next slide are, I think, 2 other examples. So again, you can see the amount of thinking and work that went into this. We allowed the kids 3 days, so they got to work about 45 minutes over, 45 minutes each of the 3 days. And then, of course, if they hadn't finished, they had to take it home for homework. But the level of effort overall was very, very good. So again, you can see another example of the blackout poetry. That was where they selected a page from Hatchet. We copied it for them, and then they had to create poetry by blacking out several of the words, but leaving a few, obviously, not blacked out. We encouraged them to use different fonts, different colors, different creative techniques. So, and we toyed with the option. You can definitely do one-pagers on the computer, digital one-pagers, but for this, we really wanted them to just get their hands on a piece of paper, get their hands on, like, art supplies that they can hold and touch. And so they did a great job on this. You can easily research or search on the internet one-pagers, and it'll pull up one-pagers on a lot of different things. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, there's a lot of resources and examples through Google and through searching. Diane, I think the next slide is, yep, that's about it. So again, depth and complexity with our project, across the disciplines with that. And then our one-pager were a couple effective language arts things we've been doing this year. The kids have really been rising to the challenge and seem to really be engaged in their learning and taking ownership of it. So, all right, I think that's about it, Diane.
Sounds good. Anybody have questions or anything to add to those kinds of things for Kristin? She's going to stay on, but if you wanted to bring up anything now. No one? Thank you, Kristin. Can you go back? I guess I can go back. The blackout poems, didn't you do that with, was that from the Kwame Alexander books? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so last year Diane had shared that Kwame Alexander was going to be coming and presenting at the library. And so in my 4th grade kiddos and then the teacher I work with in 5th grade, we kind of latched onto that and ran with it. And so my 4th graders, they did crossover, and the 5th grade group, they did a whole poetry study dealing with a lot of sections in his books. And so the style of Kwame Alexander is, it's a novel, but it's told in poetry form, and it's a lot of different types of poetry, but it's also sports related. So it really engages your boys, but also your girls. And so many kids. I mean, one of my students, she came up to me and said, guess what one of my Christmas gifts was? I got the entire set of Kwame Alexander books. And we had several kids, or a handful of kids, that were really interested in checking out some of his other books. They just it really instilled a love of poetry in them. So this blackout poetry is one of the types and styles that Kwame Alexander uses throughout his books, along with many other different types. And so again, that's just where you create your unique poem using the author's words. So it's pretty neat what they came up with. And that's in a nutshell, Kwame Alexander. I would say you have to be careful. It's definitely readability level of an elementary level. However, some of the content, and it's not all throughout the books, but there are a couple sections that are questionable. Just some references, like subtle sexual references, like between a mom and a dad, but how I handled that section, because the book was just so good that I didn't want to sacrifice the entire book for a couple pages, is the teacher and I, if we pre-read it, so we know if a section like that's coming up. So we do this whole day, we make a big deal of it, where guess what, guys, you're going to do visualization right now. So they close their book and we read it aloud, and we, kind of word it how we want to word it, or just completely skip a section altogether, and they don't really even know. But Booked is another one of his books. And again, that's another one that you want to definitely look at ahead of time. Again, not horrible, but I know, like, my oldest is in 5th grade and he did it last year. And I try to be cautious. I don't want to expose kids to things that they don't really need to be exposed to. So great books, but just pre-read them ahead of time. Is that what you wanted, Diane? Is that good?
Yeah.
Would you agree, Diane, about the content? Like, overall, it's fine, but there are a couple of sections that
I'm having sound issues and it's echoing, but so we'll get it figured out. Michelle Hanshey had a question. The Lexile for the book?
For which one?
The first one was art.
Chasing Vermeer. I'm gonna I don't know off the top of my head. Okay, so the Lexile level of that book is a 770. However, a handful of years ago, our school did a huge push on Lexiles. And so a handful of years ago, I definitely looked at Lexile, which I still look at Lexile level, but I also try to look at the content, because I found that the depth of the book doesn't always align with the Lexile. So that Lexile level right there would really be, for a gifted kids, a Lexile level of like a maybe 3rd or 4th grade gifted level reader. But that book has so much that you can pull into it that I think it's definitely appropriate for a 5th, 6th grade level. But yeah, it is a 770.
And then can I ask you what was like, and maybe I missed it. I was trying to listen. What was the time frame, like the readability time frame with the kiddos that you gave, and then the time framing of the project itself? Like, what was your, I don't know, like your lesson plan, like how long was your span?
Yep. Okay, so because of the online component this year for some of our learners and kids coming back at the quarter mark, we really had to make sure that everything we did ended at the quarter mark. So I would say the entirety of that book, all the depth and complexity things, and the project was no more than an 8-week period, I guess, at the most. Our time frame of the reading, we would do the reading, the discussion, the depth and complexity things Monday through Thursday. We had about 40 to 45 minutes, give or take a few minutes, because Fridays we do a Genius Hour project with those kids. So that's their enrichment time during that. So it was Monday through Thursday. And then the actual Chasing Vermeer project was, how much time? So the art masterpiece, we told them that had to be done on their own. Like, that was an at-home assignment. But parts 1 and 2, I would say we gave them about a week. I think we gave them 4 to 5 class days. And then they had the weekend to finish anything up. And then we had our art exhibit. Actually, we had our project presentations and then our art exhibit. But everything was wrapped up by the end of the first quarter. So I believe, taking out the beginning of the school year stuff, it was approximately an 8-week study.
Anyone
You're
else?
welcome.
And I apologize if you're getting echoing. Are you hearing that? Whatever.
Yes, there is a bit of an echo, Diane, but it's fine.
Okay, thank
I think
you.
we're fine.
I had everything worked out and then lost my connectivity and everything went crazy. So thank you again, Kristin.